Welcome back to the deep dive. We are so glad you're here.
It's good to be here.
Today, we are tackling a subject that is, well, it's so ubiquitous, so woven into the fabric of modern life that it's almost invisible to us.
Completely. It's just the background radiation of our lives.
It is. It's a place where we spend, nearly a third of our adult lives. We commute to it. We complain about it. We organize our entire existence around its hours.
We drink its questionable coffee.
We drink its questionable coffee. But we almost never stop to ask, what is it? I mean, really, where did this whole concept come from?
It's such a great point. It is the backdrop of the modern human experience.
Right.
Yet we take its architecture, its history, and its psychological impact completely for granted.
Yeah, we just accept it as the container for our days.
Exactly.
We are talking, of course, about The Office. And before you roll your eyes and think, oh, great, a deep dive on spreadsheets and fluorescent lights, just, because the sources we have today paint a picture that is, frankly, surprisingly dramatic. We're talking about Roman palaces, the British Navy, the psychological warfare of open floor plans.
Oh, absolutely. And the invisible economics that decide whether you get a window or a wall.
It really is a fascinating evolution.
It is. When you look at the stack of research we have here, from architectural histories to psychological studies, you realize the office isn't just a room with a desk. It's a technology.
A technology? How do you...
It's a tool. A tool for control, for organization, and for better or worse, for shaping human behavior on a massive scale.
Right. It's a machine we live inside. So, okay, let's start with the basics. If I asked someone on the street to define an office, I'd probably get it's a place where I go to type on a computer.
Sure. Or sit in a swivel chair.
Exactly. But our sources suggest the definition is a little more slippery than that.
It is, yeah. If we look at the strict functional definition, an office is simply a space where administrative work happens to support an organization's goals.
Okay, that sounds straightforward enough.
But the physical form of that can be anything. It could be a massive glass skyscraper in a city center, sure. But it can also be a single floor in a strip mall, a spare room in your house.
Or even just a bench in the corner of a workshop.
Right. And then there's the legal definition, which is where it gets really weird.
This is the part that I found so surprising.
Go on.
According to the source material, a company is considered to have an office anywhere it has an official presence. And the example they gave was wild.
Yeah, the storage silo.
The storage silo.
Oh.
It said even if that presence is just a storage silo, that counts legally as an office.
Which really stretches the imagination, doesn't it? We think of the office as the chair, the desk, the water cooler, but legally it's just about the official presence.
It's the footprint of the company.
Exactly. A grain silo in the middle of a field can be the legal office, if that's where the company exists physically.
I just love the image of a guy in a suit standing in a grain silo holding a briefcase. It's fantastic. But for the sake of our listeners today, when we talk about the office, we're really focusing on that environment where white-collar workers are.
The architectural phenomenon, yes. The place where the magic or the drudgery happens.
So here is the mission for this deep dive. We're going to uncover the history of the office, tracing it all the way from Roman scrolls to the very first skyscraper.
Then we'll get into the psychology of the design.
Oh, yeah. That never-ending battle between open plans and cubicles that seems to make everyone miserable in different ways.
And we'll break down the economics. What makes a building Class A versus Class C?
Essentially, we want to understand how the spaces we work in shape how we work.
And that's the crucial link. As Winston Churchill famously said, we shape our buildings, and thereafter they shape us. And that is nowhere more true than in the office.
So let's go back, way back. Etymology is always such a good place to start to understand the soul of a thing.
Agreed.
When I hear the word office, I think of a physical box, a room. But you found that wasn't the original meaning at all.
No, not even close. The word comes from the Latin officium.
Officium, okay.
And in ancient Rome, officium didn't mean a building. It didn't mean a place you went to. It meant a duty or a service.
Oh, interesting.
It could also refer to the staff, the people themselves, or the abstract position like the office of the magistrate.
So in the Roman mind, you didn't go to the office.
You were the office.
Wow.
You held the office. The office was a concept of responsibility that you carried with you.
That's a huge mental shift. So when did it change? When did it become a place?
The shift in meaning to a physical location is actually relatively recent in the grand scheme of things. The sources point out that it wasn't until around 1395 that the word started to change in English.
1395, so late Middle Ages.
Right. And it's Geoffrey Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales, who's one of the first recorded users of the word office to describe an actual place where business is transacted.
So Chaucer did it.
That's the pivot point. That's where the duty becomes a location.
Good old Chaucer. Always inventing things. So, okay, before Chaucer, if you were in ancient Rome or Byzantium and you had paperwork to do, and we know they had a ton of paperwork, they ran massive empires, where did you do it?
They certainly did. Rome ran on bureaucracy. But these offices were usually integrated into palace complexes or large temples. There wasn't a separate business district like we have today.
So the administration was physically attached to the seat of power?
Or the seat of religion, yeah. And this leads to a funny confusion for modern archaeologists.
Oh, right, the library confusion. I loved this detail in the source material.
It's a classic case of misinterpretation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Archaeologists often dig up these rooms in ancient ruins, Roman forums, Byzantine palaces, and they're filled with all these niches in the walls.
And the immediate thought is library.
The instinct is to call them libraries because, well, they held scrolls. And we associate scrolls with literature, poetry, philosophy.
But they weren't sitting in there reading Homer.
Exactly. These were administrative centers. The scrolls were tax records, grain inventories, legal decrees, census data.
They were spreadsheets.
They were ancient spreadsheets.
Yeah.
These were offices in every functional sense. They were for record keeping and management. But because the medium was the scroll, we tend to romanticize them as libraries.
I love that. The ancient tax auditor gets credit for being a philosopher just because he used parchment.
Pretty much.
It really changes how you visualize those ancient spaces. They weren't these quiet retreats for reading. They were probably bustling with clerks yelling about grain shipments from Egypt.
Absolutely. It was the data center of the ancient world.
So let's move forward to the Middle Ages. The years, say, 1000 to 1300. This is where we see the Chancery.
The medieval Chancery, yes. This was essentially the government office of the day. It was where the kingdom's laws were copied, official letters were written.
And visually, this is where we start to see things that look familiar to the modern eye. The sources describe walls full of pigeonholes.
Pigeonholes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a classic office image. We still use that word metaphorically today.
We do. Don't pigeonhole me.
And they were literally holes for pigeons. Well, not for pigeons, but for rolled up parchment. And if you think about it, that grid of pigeonholes is the direct ancestor of the modern bookshelf.
Or the filing cabinet.
Or the filing cabinet. It's the same problem. How do I store a massive amount of information in a way that is retrievable? You create a grid.
It's interesting, though, that even then there was this blur between the personal and the professional. The source mentions that there was no real distinction between a private office and a private library in the Middle Ages.
That's right. And that's largely because of the scarcity of books and writing materials. I mean, parchment was expensive, literacy was rare. You wouldn't have a separate desk for work and a separate desk for leisure reading.
You had one desk, your one good desk.
You had one desk, you read your devotional books there, and you wrote your business letters there. The office, as a distinct separate zone just for commerce, hadn't really calcified yet. It was just your writing space.
So when does that separation happen? When do we get the first building that is just for work, where you leave your house and go to a building that has no other purpose than administration?
For that, we have to look to the 18th century. And the catalyst, as with so many things in history, was the growth of large, complex organizations.
The original mega corporations.
Specifically, navies and trading companies.
Right.
Running a global empire requires a level of administration that you just can't do from a desk in your living room. You need an army of clerks. You need centralized records.
So we see the first purpose-built office building in Great Britain appearing in 1726, the Old Admiralty.
The Ripley Building, yes. It housed the Royal Navy's administration. And it had a boardroom, which is a key feature we still have today, but it also had apartments for the Lords of the Admiralty.
So even then, people were living at work.
In a sense. The bosses had to be on site 24/7. And then later in the 1770s, you get Somerset House, which gathered all the scattered Royal Navy offices into one massive block.
But the real titan of bureaucracy, the one that really changed the game, seems to be the East India Company.
Oh, absolutely. East India House on Leadenhall Street, built in 1729. This place was the nerve center for administering vast colonial possessions in India.
The scale must have been incredible.
Unimaginable. The sheer volume of paperwork meant they needed thousands of clerks. It was a massive information processing machine. And this is where we see a major cultural shift.
Which
The
is...
invention of clocking in.
Wait, really? The East India Company invented clocking in? I thought that was like a 20th century factory thing.
They were certainly early adopters of the concept on a massive scale. The company realized the benefit of centralized administration, but they had a problem. How do you manage thousands of people?
You make them sign a piece of paper when they arrive.
They required workers to sign in and out daily. It's the birth of the 9-to-5 surveillance, in a way. You weren't just completing a task, you were selling your time.
That is a pivotal moment. The commodification of presence. Before that, work was make this shoe or harvest this field.
And when you were done, you were done.
Right, now it's be in this room from this hour to that hour.
Exactly. It defines the modern employment contract. And then, of course, the Industrial Revolution just kicks the door down on all of this.
Boom. Now it's not just the Navy and the East India Company.
No. Now it's banking, rail, insurance, telegraphy. These industries grew explosively in the 19th century. And they're all information-heavy industries.
A railroad isn't just trains.
It's schedules, tickets, cargo manifests, payroll.
They need massive amounts of order processing and accounting. And they needed somewhere to put all those clerks.
Correct. And this brings us to the furniture. I found this detail fascinating. The desks of the 19th century were very different from what we have now. They're described as top-heavy.
Yeah, the source mentioned they had cabinet-like cubby holes above the workspace, like those old roll-top desks you see in movies.
Right. Think of those beautiful antique desks. They have all these little nooks and crannies and high backs. And what that did, completely accidentally, was offer privacy.
Accidental privacy. I like that.
If you were a clerk sitting at one of those desks, you had a little wall of wood in front of you. You were in your own little cocoon. You couldn't see the guy in front of you, and he couldn't see you.
They didn't design it for mental health. They designed it for storage. But the result was a bit of solitude.
But enjoy that privacy while it lasts, folks, because the 20th century is coming for it.
Before we get to the death of privacy, though, we have to talk about the buildings themselves growing up. Literally.
The vertical shift, yes. This is simple economics. As these industries clustered in city centers, London, New York, Chicagoland, prices skyrocketed.
You couldn't build out.
There was no land left, so you had to build up.
And the source mentions the Brunswick Building in Liverpool, 1841, as the first purpose-built office block. But there was a technological limit, right? You could only ask people to walk up so many stairs.
Exactly. 10 stories was about the limit of human endurance for a daily commute. If your office was on the 12th floor, you were going to have a very sweaty, very tired workforce.
And a very unpopular boss.
Right. But then, in 1852, Elisha Otis invents the safety elevator.
The game changer.
Suddenly, the sky is the limit. You can stack hundreds of offices on top of each other. And this creates the modern skyline, but it also creates the modern density of workers. You can now put thousands of people on a single footprint of land.
Which brings us perfectly to the 20th century, the era of efficiency. And this is where the vibe of the office really shifts from gentlemanly administration to a factory for paper.
It really does, and the scale just gets enormous. By 1906, Sears, Roebuck & Co. opened a headquarters in Chicago that was 3 million square feet.
3 million square feet. I can't even picture that. That is a city.
It was the largest building in the world at the time. And when you have a workforce that size, management starts looking for ways to optimize. They stop seeing individuals and start seeing a mass.
Enter Frederick Winslow Taylor.
And scientific management? Or Taylorism?
I feel like Taylor is the villain in so many stories about modern work.
He is certainly a polarizing figure. Taylor pioneered time and motion studies in manufacturing, measuring exactly how long it takes to turn a screw or lift a shovel.
But then people like the Gilbreths applied this thinking to the office.
They did. And the philosophy was, managers need an active role in directing subordinates for efficiency. You can't just trust the clerk to do the work. You have to watch them do it.
And this killed the cozy cabinet desk.
It did. In 1915, the Equitable Life Insurance Company in New York introduced the Modern Efficiency Desk.
It just sounds ominous, doesn't it? The Modern Efficiency Desk.
It was a design revolution, had a flat top, no cubby holes, no high back. All the drawers were strictly below the waist.
So nowhere to hide.
Precisely. The why behind this design was explicitly surveillance. It removed the privacy of the old cabinet desks, so managers had an easy, unobstructed view of the workers.
So the open plan office, which we all think of as this modern, hip Silicon Valley thing, It actually started in 1915 as a way to spy on people.
Yes. The source explicitly says this was the return of open spaces, not for collaboration, but for surveillance.
Wow.
It was about turning the office into a factory floor where the product was paper and the manager was the foreman walking the lines.
That is chilling. But it also makes so much sense of what came next. So you have these vast open floors of flat desks, zero privacy. The noise must have been incredible, the lack of focus.
And that leads us to the next big pivot, the war for privacy.
To fight back.
By the mid-20th century, companies started to realize that this factory floor approach had backfired. The total lack of privacy was causing tedium, it was hurting productivity, people felt exposed and stressed.
So they needed the solution. Enter the cubicle.
Or, as it was originally called, the action office.
Action office sounds so much more dynamic than cubicle. It sounds like a place where things get done.
That was the hope. In 1964, Robert Probst, a designer for Herman Miller, came up with the action office system. And his goal was actually very noble.
What was he trying to do?
He wanted to give knowledge workers a flexible, semi-private space that would encourage focus and collaboration. He wanted to liberate them from the open bullpens. He designed walls that could move, standing desks, different zones for different tasks.
But it morphed into something else entirely.
As companies adopted it, they realized, hey, we can just pack a lot of these little boxes into a room. The action office devolved into the cubicle system.
It became a way to warehouse people.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
And the source points out some really specific flaws with the cubicle. The famous Dilbert world. It solved visual privacy. You couldn't see your neighbor eating a sandwich.
Which is a plus.
A definite plus. But it failed completely at acoustic separation.
Right. You can still hear everything, the phone calls, the typing, the sighing, the chewing.
It's the worst of both worlds. You feel alone because you have walls around your eyes, but you're constantly disturbed because you have no walls around your ears.
And then there's the back problem. I never thought about this specifically, but it's so true. Cubicles often force you to sit with your back to the entrance of your workspace.
It's a primal anxiety. Evolutionarily, we don't like having our backs exposed to the cave entrance. We want to see who is coming.
And the source mentions that workers often use mirrors on their monitors.
Little rear view mirrors.
Yeah.
Just to see people approaching.
That speaks to a low-level, constant state of vigilance that is just exhausting. If you have to install a rear view mirror at your desk, you are not relaxed.
Not at all.
Okay, so we hated the open plan. So we built cubicles, then we hated the cubicles. So what did we do?
We went back to the open plan.
We did. We just tore down the walls again, but this time we called it collaborative and innovative.
We did. We rebranded it for the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
But the modern data on open plans is what's damning.
Let's unpack that data, because I think a lot of managers out there still believe open plans create synergy.
The source cites research that shows open plan offices are associated with increased stress and a 25% uptick in negative moods.
25%, that's a lot.
It is. But here's the real paradox. They led to a 70% decrease in face-to-face interactions.
Wait, say that again, a 70% decrease. The whole point is to make people talk.
That's the theory. But the reality of human behavior is different. When you are in a fishbowl, when you're in a library-like open space, you don't want to be the person making noise and disturbing everyone else.
You feel socially pressured to be quiet.
Exactly. So what do?
Put on headphones.
You put on headphones, you withdraw into your own little bubble, you send an email or a Slack message to the person sitting 6 feet away from you instead of talking to them.
So the open plan actually creates a wall of silence.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
We built walls of silence because we took down the walls of drywall.
And productivity dropped up to 20% due to distractions. It's just hard to do deep, focused work when you can see everyone walking by and hear every single conversation.
Now, the source does mention a different approach to the open plan, the Japanese model. This seems like a cultural variation on the theme.
Right, the island-style layout?
Yes, this is very distinct from the Western rows of desks. In Japan, desks are often arranged in clusters or islands with people facing each other.
How does that change the dynamic?
It's designed to promote teamwork and top-down management. Usually the team sits together in a pod, and the manager sits at the head of the island, kind of like a captain at the helm.
So it reinforces the group unit rather than the individual.
Precisely. And it facilitates some unique Japanese business concepts. The source mentions uchiways and ringisho.
What are those?
Uchiways refers to informal meetings. The island layout encourages quick, ad hoc check-ins at the desk without needing to book a formal room.
You can just lean over and talk.
Right. And reissue is a consensus system. It's a way of circulating a proposal to get input from the group, literally passing a document around the island to build agreement before a final decision is made.
So the physical space is built to support this collective decision-making style.
It's a cycle. The culture dictates the furniture, and the furniture reinforces the culture.
It's amazing. So, okay, we've talked about the desk. But the modern office isn't just a sea of desks. It's a complex ecosystem. The source breaks down the anatomy of a modern office into zones.
It does, and this is really important because a good office isn't one thing. It's a menu of spaces. The source identifies three main categories: workspaces, meeting spaces, and support spaces.
Let's run through the workspaces first. There are 9 types listed here. We've got the open office and the private office, which are the obvious ones. But what else stood out to you in this list?
I think the nuances are interesting. For instance, the team space. This is a semi-enclosed area for maybe 2 to 8 people. It acknowledges that sometimes a small unit needs to be cut off from the herd to get things done.
It's not a meeting room, it's a workroom.
Exactly. Then there's the touchdown space.
I like that name.
The name says it all, doesn't it? It's an open space for one person, designed for short-term, low-concentration work. This is for the salesperson who is in the office for an hour between meetings. They don't need a dedicated desk with pictures of their dog.
They just need a surface and a plug.
A surface and a plug. And then there is the office pod. This feels very current. I see these everywhere now.
The little phone booths.
Little phone booths. The pod is the direct response to the failure of the open plan. It's a cost-effective way to buy privacy. If you can't build walls, you buy a soundproof booth for phone calls.
It's a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid, but a necessary one in an open plan.
Then we have meeting spaces. We've got the standard meeting rooms, but then there's the brainstorm room.
Which is specifically distinguished from a normal meeting room. It's for workshops, usually 5 to 12 people. And the implication is that the furniture is different.
Whiteboards on every wall.
Movable chairs, sticky notes everywhere. It's a space designed for active creation, not just passive listening.
And the meeting point.
Which is an ad hoc, informal spot for 2 to 4 people. This is the water cooler conversation, but formalized. It's those standing tables you see in hallways.
Right. It acknowledges that the best ideas often happen in the margins, not in the boardroom.
Exactly.
Finally, support spaces. These are the spaces that keep the humans alive. Pantries, break areas, locker areas. But there are some unexpected ones on this list for me.
The smoking room was one. An enclosed space specifically for smoking. You don't see these in new builds in the US or UK anymore, really, but historically and globally, they're a specific architectural feature.
With heavy-duty ventilation systems.
Hopefully. Then there's the games room, pool tables, darts.
That's the .com influence, right? Trying to make work feel like a clubhouse so you never want to leave.
That's the idea. And one that is legally mandatory now in the US, lactation rooms.
Yeah, under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010.
This is a crucial addition. It recognizes that workers have bodies and families. It's a dedicated, private support space that isn't a bathroom. It represents a huge shift in who the office is designed for.
It's not just for the male clerk of 1915 anymore.
It's for a diverse workforce. It's a long way from the pigeonholes of the Middle Ages.
It really is. Now, we have to talk about the invisible hand that shapes all of this. Money. Real estate.
The business of buildings?
We walk into these lobbies with marble floors and security guards, but we rarely think about the lease structure or the grading systems that put them there.
It's a massive industry. Office buildings are commercial buildings, specifically designed for admin work. That means they have to handle specific technical needs, light levels, networking, HVAC loads. It's a very specific asset class.
And the rental economics are fascinating. How is rent even quoted?
It's usually cost per floor area per time. So you might see a number like $29 per square foot per year.
Okay, so if I rent 1,000 square feet, I'm paying $29,000 a year.
Roughly, yes. But the devil is in the lease type. And this is something every aspiring entrepreneur needs to know. You have the gross lease and the triple net lease.
Break those down. What's the difference?
A gross lease is all-inclusive. You pay your one rent check, and the landlord covers utilities, taxes, repairs, janitorial services. It's simple. You know your monthly cost.
And triple net, that sounds ominous.
It's a one to watch out for.
Yeah.
In a triple net lease, the tenant pays a share of everything.
Everything.
You pay the base rent, plus property taxes, insurance, maintenance, climate control, landscaping, janitorial, the whole shebang.
So if the air conditioning for the whole building breaks?
You might be paying for a portion of that repair based on the square footage you occupy.
Wow. So the advertised rent might look low, but the actual cost could be much, much higher.
Exactly. It shifts the risk from the landlord to the tenant.
And then there is the class system. Literally, BOMA, the Building Owners and Managers Association, grades office buildings.
Class A, Class B, and Class C.
It sounds like a report card for buildings.
It basically is. Class A is the most prestigious. These are the trophy buildings. State-of-the-art systems, exceptional accessibility, a definite market presence. If you're a high-powered law firm, you pay for Class A to signal your success.
Okay. And Class B.
Average. Adequate systems, fair finishes. It competes for a wide range of users. It's a solid building, but it doesn't have that wow factor of a Class A.
And Class C is?
Functional space at below average rents. This is for tenants who just need a roof and a power outlet. The finishes might be dated, the lobby might be small, but it works.
But the source notes that real estate agents often push the boundaries with this.
Oh, always. You'll see Class A plus or Class B. It's marketing. Everyone wants to believe they're in a Class A building.
But of course. So we've covered the history, the design, the money, and usually we try to wrap up with a neat summary. But looking at this whole picture from the scroll to the Zoom pod, it feels like we are in a constant cycle.
It really is a cycle. We started with the pigeonhole and the cabinet desk, these little private nooks.
Accidental privacy.
Then Taylorism tore down the walls for surveillance. Then we built cubicles to give privacy back. Then we tore down the cubicles for collaboration. And now
The data suggests we might be turning back again.
this is the final provocative thought from our sources. There is a post-pandemic trend emerging. Private cell office plans.
Cell office. It sounds like a prison, but it's actually what people seem to want.
It's essentially a return to the private office, a small room with a door. And the data that's coming out reports that these layouts enhance productivity by up to 22%.
22% is huge. Any CEO would kill for a 22% productivity bump.
It is. These plans address health precautions, obviously, which is on everyone's mind now, but they also address the distraction crisis that the open plan created.
So are we about to see the death of the open plan and the return of the door?
The office of the future might actually look a lot more like the office of the past. Walls, doors, quiet.
The return of the door. I like the sound of that.
It raises a big question for you, the listener. If you feel exhausted at work, if you feel like you can't think, is it you? Or is it the architecture? Is it the building itself that's wearing you down?
That is something to mull over the next time you are trying to have a private phone call in a glass box.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for walking us through this. I will never look at a cubicle or a storage silo the same way again.
My pleasure. It was fascinating stuff.
And thank you for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.